Hey, welcome back to She Said, She Said after a little bit of a break. I am Pam Pryor, doing a podcast with my lovely wife of 34 years, and we are glad to be back on the air again. We talk about just what happens in life when you're sharing a home, sharing a life, sharing a daughter, sharing 3 dogs, and 2 very different personalities.
Yeah. I don't even know where to go from there.
Case.
She just goes totally off script. I'm Deb Reinhardt. I'm a coach. I am a pharmaceutical exec, and I mostly balance Pam, unless it comes to like talking to y'all, in which case really can't shut her up. So that is that.
And I do go off script a lot.
All the time.
That is one of the big differences.
Francis gave you permission.
But what I need to point out to you is, do you know that we've been in a battle for 2 weeks that neither of us has spoken a word about?
I know.
Do you know what it is?
The trash can in the kitchen.
You do know. So y'all tell me if this has happened to you. I come downstairs one day, and for whatever reason, first of all, the trash can has always been in the perfect spot.
It's not always been there. It's not always been there.
Because there's the sink right in front of me where you do a lot. And there's a counter over here where you do a lot. And you can turn around right behind you from the sink and throw stuff away. And you can just do a quarter turn from the other counter and throw stuff away. Perfect spot for it. So I come down one morning and it's moved. And it's not just moved to another good spot. It's moved like
it's in a good
out
spot.
of the kitchen.
No, it's in the kitchen.
By the back door.
Oh my God, the back door is in the kitchen.
It's in sort of the eating nook by the back door. And I'm like, and I lived with it for a few days. And every time I went to throw something away, I turned around behind me and went, oh shit. And went and opened it and put it in. And then all of a sudden I went, you know what? I'm putting it back. And I put it back. And it stayed there for 2 or 3 days.
Then I moved it back.
And then it moved back. And now, almost every day, the trash can goes back and forth. Yeah. So I was wondering if you knew we were in the battle.
Yeah, I know.
I figured there's this.
I know. I just decided to not say anything. I just figured,
Me too.
Okay, I'm just going to move it back.
Do you want to tell me your logic for putting it in a place that makes no sense?
I feel it's not that it makes no sense. So let me be very clear. Our kitchen is basically a U. And on this side of the U is the sink, as she said. And then there's there's countertop, and then there's more stuff this way. Anyway, on this side of the U, there's now an open spot because I had moved the pot rack,
which is nowhere near where you make trash, mind you.
But it is outside of the way of everything. So now there's more space between the island, which is in the center of the U, and the outside side. So I like a little more room.
Yeah. And I like a trash can where it makes sense.
The trash can makes sense exactly where it is.
Yeah. Well, I think I put it back, so you're right.
It's all right. I can move it anytime I want.
So anyway, anybody else have those? I wonder if other people do that kind of stuff. I'm guessing they must.
I've got to believe there
have to be things that are like, this makes no sense.
The other thing that I do frequently is I don't know why it is. We each have a glass with our toothbrush heads.
Yep.
In the bathroom. I don't know, 50% of the time I find your toothbrush head in my glass.
There's got to be a little monster doing that.
Why can she just not use her own glass?
Oh, that's very different.
Drop her toothbrush head in her glass.
That's very different.
But they look exactly the same. So then I have to look at them and say, okay, which one is mine? Which one's hers? Because they're the same.
Yeah.
Except that.
So that's not a battle. That's not. I think having 2 glasses makes complete sense. Like, I'm not putting it in there because I don't want to use the other glass. I don't think I put it in there. I think you make that up. Because I never put it in the other glass.
Who puts your toothbrush away?
I don't know. Somebody's doing it.
It's you, hon.
Somebody's messing with it.
It's you.
It's probably you in the middle of the night. Yeah. Francis, what's your opinion on the trash can?
I'm torn. I could go either way.
Of course.
I don't like taking your sides when we bring
fair enough.
That's fair.
It's the whole point of she said.
That's so responsible.
This is one where it really is I'm right, she's wrong.
No.
Just for the record.
I get it in either place. And I will tell you that when we redo the kitchen and we have an island, I'm happy to put a cabinet drawer in there. So
where it belongs. Yeah. No, I get that.
I'd even put it there. I'd even put it in that location.
Interestingly.
I hate it there. It's right in the middle of where we're cooking and prepping things. Ugh.
That's the point.
No. It takes 2 seconds to take your stuff and just move like literally 2 feet and throw it in the other place.
It is pretty funny because we have.
It's really 2 feet away.
I have
Maybe
no like concerns or issues about the aesthetic. I think our house looks great. You move the furniture a lot. It looks great after you're done. I always love how the house looks. There are just like
She's
a couple
blind.
things.
She's blind.
Well, I am blind, but there are like 1 or 2 things that I'm like, do anything you want, but just don't screw with this. And it's the nest, my office,
God, the nest.
and now the trash can.
The
That's
nest.
it. But everything else can shift. And actually, you can move the nest.
I have moved the nest.
As long as it can still meet all of the requirements.
Yeah,
It has to be a plug coming from the left because the plug is right left
I know
on here.
what it is. I know the requirements.
But they don't know the requirements.
Oh, yeah.
There has to be a plug on the left. There has to be room for me to go back and forth in the chair. I have to be able to see the TV. And that's really it. I'm not very demanding. There needs to be a table nearby.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward.
Just a place for all her shit. Is
I
what
love
is.
it.
Just have to have a place to hold all your shit.
That's
in
exactly
in
right.
the room that we all hang
But
out
that's
in
it.
the
There's a
most.
whole house for everything else. All right. So today,
What?
we're going to talk about
Yeah.
our favorite job. Was that the first thing?
Our favorite job.
Your favorite job?
And then advice.
Yeah, that's the
Okay.
most advice you received.
Yeah.
What's your favorite job been ever in your long and industrious career or illustrious career?
I think my favorite job is the job I have now.
That's a great answer.
I mean, every job has been a favorite. Every job has been a favorite.
When
When I've had it, as I've moved through it, every job has been a favorite.
That's a blessing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. Is there any job that I like totally hated? I don't think
No?
so.
Yeah, I actually feel the same way. And I know that I'm really lucky that that's the case. Like blessed.
Yeah.
Because I've had, I don't know, I could probably count them up.
What about the mailroom? You
loved the
talk about
mailroom.
the mailroom with
I
such
loved it.
fondness.
Well, that's what I was going to
Like-
say. Like my favorite jobs, if I were to pick them right now, is this one right now, which I just love. And which is, being a fractional CFO, running a book, running my own company.
Mhm.
And being in the mailroom at DuPont, which was a
Yeah.
monster of a company and a mailroom and me. And
Yeah.
what I realized with that is that I make fun out of any job I have because you're there, have fun.
You're doing it well.
Like,
and I feel like
Even if it's counting inventory,
no
which
matter
I've
where
done
I
a
was,
lot
I was
of.
doing good things.
Right.
Like that was the thing that for me, I was like, there was always something that was good for somebody
Right.
in my work.
Yeah.
I do have a fondness for my first job at DuPont.
What was that?
I was in expense ledger accounting.
Right. You got my voucher.
I got the
80/80.
80/80. Yeah. But that was a fun job. I think because it was the first one, right?
Yeah.
So like the first real job.
Yeah. It was so organized.
And there was like your life had like this really cool routine. And at the time, DuPont was big in Wilmington, so we owned all of these buildings downtown. So I viscerally have memories of like the smell of
Yep.
the
Oh my God,
DuPont
each building.
building and the Montana
Nemours,
building.
yep,
Yes.
they all had different smells.
They all smelled a little different.
God,
And
that's
I
so
just remember
true.
like walking to, and by the way, they had like all the amenities. There was the
Oh, yeah.
pharmacy and the hairdresser and all of the things. And we just would go to eat lunch out in
Mhm.
town and then come back. Those things, that was a special time.
Yeah, I agree. That's
It really was.
what you're describing is where I had my mail run, and we were in a building kind of off the main campus, about
Which
a block
one were
and
you
a
in?
half.
By the Bank of America?
No,
building or whatever it is?
Custom. You don't
Custom
even
Square.
know it. Custom Square down on 8th and King.
Yeah, I know where it is.
And so it was a good 3 blocks to the main building. So I had the benefit of being in DuPont, but being away.
yeah.
And I had my own mailroom. Whereas the main mailroom in DuPont was chaos. There were like 100 people in it. And you got to do one little thing.
Yeah.
I got to run my whole mailroom because it was just me, which is I think why I liked it. I was 17 years old and I like owned my own mailroom. It was
Yeah.
awesome. I guess I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. But yeah, I think my second favorite one was also equally as theoretically mundane, but it was a blast. And I did it with Carlin.
What was
There were
that?
2 of us, and we had microfilm machines.
Oh, you did the microphone.
So I worked in the freight area, all of the old freight bills and all the old freight claims went away and came back on microfilm, which was these reels that looked like a small version of a VHS tape.
Yeah.
And you'd put it in this big old machine,
and
you'd manually crank it, and then you could hit a button to have it crank itself, but you'd have an index number you were looking for, and there was a table with an index of which microfiche thing or film thing to pull, and there was microfiche, there was microfilm, the two different machines, and you got to look for the thing. So I set up races with Carlin, and we had a blast, but we got so much done because we were racing. We were always finished like with our entire pile by like noon. So we got to do other things.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of what I like about any job is how can I do it better, faster, more fun? And
you're doing it now. Now AI is helping you do it better, faster, more fun.
So true.
Right?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Like, how much is AI? That's a great point. I'm going to divert.
Yeah, go
from
ahead.
our regular topic.
We can divert.
How much has AI changed your day-to-day life and your day-to-day work?
Like crazy gangbusters. So I will say at work, my boss just came back from the officers meeting. And at the officers meeting, the head of the company said, we want everybody using AI. ChatGPT enterprise is going out to everybody. We want everybody trying to figure out how do you incorporate this? This is going to change us. This is going to make us faster, more efficient, blah, blah, blah. And then he said, and we know because we know who has access and who's using it. We know that right now there's about 30% or 40% of the executives were using it and of the officers were using it. And we're like, we want to see that at 100.
To the officers.
So they're watching. So anyway, I got
That's like the old days when they had to all of a sudden start using email and couldn't
couldn't have their
secretaries type their shit for them.
Yeah. But I use it almost daily. Really almost daily.
Yeah. And I get mad at myself for not thinking, I could have
thrown that in. And it was funny. So now we've decided in our SLT, we've decided that we're going to designate, some portion of time once a month in each of our SLT meetings to talk about what's a new use for AI? How are you using it today? Just to encourage us to be doing it. But in some cases it's simple. Like I was away for a bunch of days and I just said to her, I'm like, tell me, find me all of my action items over the last, everything that is actionable for me over the last 5 days.
It looks at your email and stuff.
It reads through all my email and gives me a summary.
That's Copilot, right?
Which is fabulous. That's Copilot. Although I just found out that we can have ChatGPT look at our Outlook and at SharePoint and stuff. So I'm going to be playing around with that.
That'd be nice.
Shortly. Because I do enjoy me a ChatGPT. I enjoy working on prompting. I enjoy talking.
Have you created a bot yet?
I have, and I'm starting to. And I was talking to folks in our SLT meeting about creating bots for certain activities that we do, and because Mike said what my boss did. We had to read, I don't know, it was like 18 scientific proposals to kind of decide what we're going to fund for this round, right? And so what he did was he took all of the proposals, downloaded them all, put them all up in ChatGPT, and said, here are my criteria for a good proposal. And he said, what is, is it unique and novel, innovative? You don't see it in research. Are there papers that are relevant? What's the, have they rationalized? A whole bunch of questions. Yeah. And then he said, and then give it to me in rank order in a table, blah, blah, blah. And he spits it out. And then we had a meeting. And as we went through it, we ranked as a group and our ranking was almost exactly the same.
Because you fed the right criteria in.
But think about it. There was a leadership team of 9 of us.
9 people for an hour.
9 people for an hour.
ChatGPT
probably did it in a heartbeat.
Well, and he had to define it, but only once.
But I said to him, Mike, he goes, it was, it had a couple things that were not quite right. I'm like, turn that into a GPT, teach it the new things that you want it to do, and this thing is going to get to know how you assess projects. And then you can have that be, the project assessor. And my friend Leo, he's basically starting to program a digital twin.
I like that.
So he's feeding it all kinds of information about himself, things he knows, blah blah blah, and he's gonna have a bot. So if he's never not around, somebody can go in and ask Leo, and get answers that would be his.
It would be Leo answers.
Yeah.
That's and that
I mean,
is
it's
like
fascinating
I think
the way
what's interesting
people are
is
thinking about
that
doing
we
this.
are probably a year behind the curve with these things that we're doing, which is that. Let me ask you a question though.
Yeah.
What about proprietary information?
So
you're uploading scientific papers made me go, huh.
we're not so we don't put anything with identifiable information.
Got it. It's all sort of generic.
But nothing is trained like our
and this is the point I was
GPT
making.
and is enterprise, so
Nothing leaves the building.
is trained. They don't train on any of our information, so we get the benefit of everything external, but nothing is training on us.
So there's no limit to what you can put up there.
We have limits on what we're
They've
putting
talked
in.
about that. Okay, because
Yeah.
I know when I'm using it for clients, I always ask their permission ahead of time, and I always redact it so that you get the numbers, but you don't get anything. You get the numbers on a story, but you don't get any details.
Yeah.
And that protects everybody just in case.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. People are like, what about privacy? Like, you can fix that. You can fix that really easily. Just make it a generic question or a hypothetical without the detail.
So it's going to
That's
be,
pretty
I
cool.
mean, it's just going to be wild. It's going to be wild.
Awesome.
I mean, and I love the fact that they're challenging us to find new ways to use it.
Everybody should be. If
right?
pharma's on it, guys, we're behind the 8 ball already.
Yeah.
Right? The big companies and corporations are at this point.
I mean,
We need to be doing it.
it's being used. It's being used in almost every single new system that's being developed right now.
It's the new internet.
Is incorporating it.
And like the internet, what we're doing, what you just described, and I've said this before with what I teach my clients, is about 1/100th of 1%, if a 1/1,000,000th of 1% of its capability.
Yeah.
Like what's happening out there with AI today is mind blowing and fun.
I know.
So, but that's good. Well, have you ever asked ChatGPT for advice?
So I always, when I ask it to work on a project with me, I'll put in a lot of information. This is what I'm doing. Here's some background. I give it a whole bunch of, I feed it a whole bunch of stuff. And then I ask it to, summarize how summarize this information, and give me an approach for blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll always ask her, by the way, my ChatGPT is a her. I always ask her, is there anything that I didn't tell you, or is there anything that I didn't ask you that would make this more compelling, or that would make this a stronger case? So in that regard, I always ask her for advice. Always.
Yeah, I think that's
Always.
a really good point. And one of the I'm using that as a lead-in.
Yeah.
One of the questions we had to address today was, have you ever gotten advice, really bad advice from somebody at work? And when was that, and what was it? And I think I really haven't gotten bad career advice, except once. And it really wasn't advice. It was just a very selfish move by a supervisor.
I know exactly which one you're talking about.
And so I worked for amazing people my entire career with 2 exceptions, which is amazing because I probably worked for 30 people, 20 to 30 people over time.
Mm-hmm.
And only 2 were like complete duds. And one of them, who will remain nameless and genderless, but you know who you are.
So you have to use
when I got the best offer in the world that anybody could get, like if you worked at DuPont and this new joint venture called DuPont Merck called you and said, do you want to come work for us? That was like getting the tap on the shoulder for the major leagues.
Yeah.
And
you were a golden person if you got to go from the parent to that.
And I had a benefit.
JV.
I had an in, right? Nepotism's great. My old boss in R&D had gone over because they took his group and he tapped me on the shoulder. I'm like, I'm in. And I went and told this supervisor, and they said, so you need to say no to that and stay here. And I said, oh, do I? And why is that? And she said it as if it was they said it as if it was an order. Like, you've got to say no, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what? And they said, well, I'll look really bad if somebody leaves the group.
Oh, come on.
So that is, first of all, the opposite of what leadership is.
Yeah.
What you want is leadership that creates a culture that makes people want to come, grow and stay if they want to, and grow and leave if they
find
want
ways to move on.
Like
Yeah.
one of my things for any leader is the biggest honor in the world you can have is to work for somebody who worked for you, because that means you helped contribute to an amazing person. So it was like, I didn't know that at the time. I was young,
Yeah.
but I'm like, what? And that was the worst advice I ever got.
I don't know.
So hard not to use the
I don't
name.
know that I've ever had really bad advice.
Not even
like
from,
really bad work
like
advice.
a couple of the one bad boss at DuPont Merck early in the early years.
I don't know that they gave me bad advice. Frustrating advice maybe, but I was young.
Yeah.
I think that was probably the realization. There were probably things that were said that frustrated me, but looking back at it, was it maybe right? Yes. Was it couched in language that was not great? Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Was it self-serving?
Yeah, maybe
Probably.
a lot. But I will say I've gotten some wonderful. I mean, I've had
Give me two
wonderful
examples
advice.
of great advice you've gotten.
So the first one would just be if someone gives you that offer, just go, just take it. Like seriously, take it.
Okay, cool.
And that, I mean, for however many reasons, I was like hesitating about jumping a job,
Mm-hmm.
and someone's like, "What's the downside? Take it.
Good.
So it's like constantly grow."
That's great. That's the real message
that
behind
was it. It was
Never
really
stop growing.
that was the message.
Yeah.
It was like, get more experience, broaden out. Like
Mm-hmm.
every single opportunity that you have to make a move, take it. Take it.
Yeah.
They're not bad. I think the other thing was somebody just telling me, just be you, like really to be me.
Mm-hmm.
I know that when I was younger in my leadership journey, I had this sense of, this is what a leader should look like. This is how a leader should act.
Got it.
And someone said to me, "No, we put you in this role for you.
You figured out you're inherently a leader.
Be you.
You're not somebody's picture of a leader."
Well, it's not even that. Like it's not even that I was. It was even that I wasn't my image of a leader.
Got
right?
it.
I thought I had to be a suit. I thought I had to look a certain way. I had to talk a certain way. And they're like, "No, we hired you to be that for you."
Mm-hmm.
And then, then you realize the inherent value that you have just by being your own self. Yeah.
It's interesting. The best pieces of advice I've gotten, one of the best pieces I've gotten is one that I hated when I got it. And it was our dear friend, Steve Layden, who pretended he was Lindsay's grandfather when she was born so he could get in the hospital and see her. But what he said to me was, at one point we had just done this absolutely heroic weekend to get something done. And I came in on Monday. I'm like, okay, we got to write awards for everybody. This was a great weekend. Everybody pitched in. We got the thing done. Aren't we awesome? And he went, I think we reward you when you don't have to do heroics. And I was like, and I hated it. I was so mad. I remember being furious about it. And now I know that's exactly right. That is exactly right. The way you want to lead, the way you want to do things is to preclude crises that need heroics, right?
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah.
But then other good advice I've gotten, Dave Marburger, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Oh, it's a marathon, not a
Which
sprint. That
sounds
was good.
like it's just trite, but he used it in some really good examples so that I didn't burn out. And then he also would say, don't let the highs get you too high and don't let the lows get you too low.
Yeah.
And that didn't ring as true for me when I was working at Tasty Cake at the time, but it really rings true as an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Because we're on this.
You're on it. You're
boom,
on it.
boom.
Yeah, I really don't want you doing on booms.
Yeah,
too
which
much.
is not how I like to. And I definitely am not an up and down person. I mean, even emotionally.
Oh
I'm
my gosh, she's straight.
So that it's good advice, and I'm able to do it pretty easily. But the roller coaster's real. It's just how you react to it, which is everything. How do you perceive what's happening? And that's perceive and react, and that's really the only practical thing to do. So both good and bad, and don't overdo it. So that one ended up having a lot of depth. And then the other thing I remember was Sharon Howitt.
Ooh.
And at the time, I was kind of this brash 30-year-old, 33-year-old, I guess. And I was like, just driven. And I wanted everybody else to be driven. And I wanted them to not make mistakes. And I didn't want to make mistakes. And You were either good at your job or you were bad at your job. Like there was no gray.
You had a lot of black and white.
At my ripe old age of 33.
I remember you.
And she pulled me in one time. She goes, and I was in a bad mood one day, like just mad because like nobody did anything right that day. I didn't do anything right. That nobody else did. I was just grumpy. She pulled me in and she said, you need to know something. Whether you like it or not, you're perceived as the leader in this organization. So you can either step up and recognize that when you're in a mood, everybody's going to follow you. So if you're leading with joy and appreciation and all that versus leading with anger and frustration, that's going to make a huge difference in a whole organization. And I was actually interviewing her for a job when she gave me this advice. And she's like, so do you think you can get a handle on that? And I went, wow,
wow.
And I knew in the moment that was great advice.
Fair advice. And boy,
so well given.
I didn't realize that Sharon did that.
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
And it was so well given because it was a compliment.
Yeah.
And now you have a responsibility. So it was the first time I realized that, number one, I was a leader, and number two, that leadership came with responsibility.
And not just that it came with responsibility, but just that your own demeanor, your own energy has the ability to affect other people around you.
And at the time, that was like 30 people on the project.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was really good advice too. So
that's great advice.
It really was. I never forgotten that one. So that's my list of advice and stuff.
All right.
I think we've covered all our topics for today. There's no game, right?
No game.
All right, cool. So look, if you've gotten any good or bad advice at work, drop it in the comments. We would love to see it because we've probably all heard some semblance of it. I'm sure you've all heard some semblance of the stuff we brought up too. And let me know where your trash can is. We'll see you next week.
The trash can is just fine. The trash can is just fine.
What are you going to tell them to do for us? Hit
like, subscribe, drop a comment in the comments, and tell your friends to come and meet us because it's kind of fun.
Because we never know what we're going to talk about next week. Have a great one.
See ya.